First module on the nutritional requirements of dogs and cats, there are a few pieces of information that need to be kept in mind. There are three key points about food to consider. The first things are the quantity. First module on the nutritional requirements of dogs and cats, there are a few pieces of information that need to be kept in mind. There are three key points about food to consider. The first things are the quantities of all the required nutrients for the particular animal being fed, and also the relative proportions of those nutrients in the diet. Because dogs and cats are essentially carnivores, the foods to which their alimentary tract is best able to handle are animal tissues. And thirdly, in order to induce the dog or cat to eat the food provided, it must be palatable to meet their particular sense of taste. There are three main types of nutrients in food, and the one that is present in greatest amounts are the components which supply chemical energy in the form of food protein, fat, or carbohydrate. The second component is protein in its own right, which supplies amino acids for the animal's own protein synthesis. And the third group are the micronutrients, so called because of the small quantities that are present and are needed in small amounts. These are the organic micronutrients, the vitamins, and the inorganic micronutrients or mineral elements. Food energy is used for two broad types of function. The first of these is called maintenance, which is the energy required simply to keep an animal alive without it doing any other activity. Maintenance energy is used in such functions as breathing, pumping of the heart, and cell metabolism. The other use of food energy is in so-called production, which applies to all the energy requiring processes on top of maintenance, such as movement, eating food, and growth. These two classes of energy expenditure are helpful in defining the energy requirements. The energy concentration of these different sources of chemical energy are not the same. The lowest energy concentration is in carbohydrate, with a typical gross energy content of 16 to 18 kilojoules per gram. The energy concentration in food protein is slightly higher than in carbohydrate at 23 to 25 kilojoules per gram. However, the highest energy density component of food is fat, which has an energy density of 35 to 38 kilojoules per gram, which is about double that of carbohydrate. When considering the supply of protein in the diet, we need to be aware of the process known as nitrogen balance. This is illustrated here as the quantity of nitrogen from protein being consumed per day, and the amount of nitrogenous products of the metabolism of that dietary protein, which comes out in urine. Here the output of nitrogen derived from dietary protein is higher than that from protein consumed, and the animal is described as being in negative nitrogen balance. This would occur in situations such as anorexia or starvation, where body protein is being broken down to supply energy. The opposite situation is where protein nitrogen intake is greater than the output of nitrogenous metabolites in urine. This is positive nitrogen balance and is typically seen during growth. When considering the amount of dietary protein needed to maintain the protein requirements, two qualities of dietary protein are important. One of these is the digestibility of the food protein in the alimentary tract. Globular proteins are more readily digested than fibrous proteins, and animal proteins are more readily digested than plant proteins. The second important feature is the so-called biological value of the food protein. This relates to how closely the amino acid composition of the food protein matches the amino acid composition of the protein the animal is itself synthesizing from those food proteins' supply of amino acids. High biological value proteins are typically from animal sources, and lower biological value proteins are from plants. The micronutrients are divided into two groups, inorganic and organic. The inorganic micronutrients are divided into major or minor elements. This has no relevance for the importance of their function. The terms major and minor simply refer to the relative quantities needed in the diet to meet the function in the body. The organic micronutrients are also divided into two groups as either water-soluble or fat-soluble vitamins.